finally revealed. Jungkook spills everything he's been hiding from Jimin. Loudly crying face, broken heart, it was a different night for Jungkook. In the midst of his busy schedule, he decided to do a short live broadcast, something that initially seemed ordinary to fans. However, no one expected that the live would be one of the most emotional moments in the history of the relationship between Jungkook and Jimin, two BTS members who have always been known for their incredible closeness. With a calm face, but a look that seemed to hold something back, Jungkook began the broadcast with a gentle greeting. "Hey everyone, it's been a long time, huh? I just want to talk a little tonight." At first, the atmosphere was light. He talks about his day, the food he likes lately, even had a small smile when reading comments army who asked him to sing. But slowly, his expression began to change when someone wrote in the comments, "You and Jimin still talk a lot, right?" That simple question left Jungkook speechless for a few seconds. He took a deep breath, then looked at the camera with eyes that no longer hide emotions. "We're still talking," he said slowly. "But there are many things that I have never told him." The room was a moment of silence. The army who were watching knew that Jungkook's tone of voice was not an ordinary tone. There was such raw honesty there, as if the wall he had been building was crumbling slowly in front of thousands of pairs of eyes that loved him. "I always try to look strong in front of Jimin Hyung," she continued, "because he is a person who always wants to protect others. I don't want to add to the burden. But sometimes I forget that by hiding everything, I create distance between us." His voice trembled when he said that sentence. He looked down, played a small ring on his finger, a ring that many army knew he often wore since the promotion of 7. "I've been angry, disappointed, and lost," he said. "Not because Jimin did anything wrong, but because I was too scared to be honest. I was afraid that if I showed my weak side, he would see me differently." His eyes began to glaze over. He paused for a moment, swallowed his saliva, then smiled bitterly. "But when we were both in the military, I realized I can't go on like this. I learned that hiding those feelings hurts others, not protects them. So tonight, I want to say, Jimin Hyung, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I never told you how important you are to me." Thousands of comments instantly flooded the screen. "We are crying, Jungkook. Jimin must be proud of you. You did the right thing." But Jungkook remained silent, staring at the camera with red, tender eyes, as if he were speaking directly to the one person who had been on his mind all along. "I know you're always the first one to hug me every time I fall," he said slowly. "You always say it's okay, I'm here. But I never really said thank you. So this is my thanks for everything you did without me asking." The broadcast lasted only 20 minutes, but it was like opening a box of memories that had been sealed tightly. Jungkook didn't go into detail about what he was hiding, but every word, every pause, felt like it carried a weight that only those who knew him could understand, and Jimin himself, shortly after the live ended. ARMY discovered that Jimin liked a fan's post who wrote an excerpt from the broadcast. "Jungkook is finally honest. And his honesty is the purest form of love." Many believe Jimin watched it live that night. The next day, Jimin updated the community platform with one short sentence, "I know, and I always forgive you before you even ask." That sentence made the whole fandom go wild. Thousands of comments flooded the post, most crying at the way Jimin responded without naming names, but all knew who the sentence was addressed to. A few days later, Jungkook wrote on the same platform, "Thank you for always understanding even when I can't explain. You're still my home." It was a moment of great debate among the military. Not only because of Jungkook's honesty, which he rarely shows in public, but because the relationship between the two again shows a depth that is difficult to describe in words. No need for labels, no need for explanations, just two people who understand each other, grow each other, and forgive each other. Since that night, many fans have assumed that Jungkook has finally shed everything he held onto for years: the fear, regret, and love he never truly expressed. But behind all the tears and silence that followed, there was a warm beauty, honesty that finally found its place. And for ARMY, the night wasn't just about confessing to an idol, it was about a big lesson that sometimes loving someone means being brave enough to tell the truth, even if that word makes you vulnerable. Because behind every silence and tears Jungkook had that night, there was a name that was always the reason for everything: Jimin. Broken heart, revolving hearts. After that night of confessions, things are no longer the same for Jungkook and Jimin, at least in ARMY's eyes. Something has changed in the way the two look at each other, even in seemingly simple photos or videos. Many say the aura between them now feels calmer, more mature, as if the long burden that had been pressing between them had finally fallen, with one sincere word of apology. A few days after Jungkook's broadcast, Jimin appeared in an official HYB show. Her smile was still the same, soft, polite, and warm, but many noticed her eyes looked a little different. He looked softer, deeper, as if restraining emotions that have not completely subsided. When a reporter asked him how he felt after a long absence from public appearances with Jungkook, Jimin smiled faintly and said, "Everyone has their own time to come back. I believe, as long as we still trust each other, nothing really goes away." That sentence was simple, but to many ARMY, it felt like an indirect answer to Jungkook's live. As if Jimin wanted to say that he understood everything without having to be spoken at length. The next day, netizens were excited when some fans saw two casually dressed figures around the Itaewon area. They wear masks and hats, but their gestures are all too familiar to anyone who's been following BTS for a long time. One of them, wearing an oversized denim jacket, looked down while talking to the other, who was wearing a black hoodie and simple training pants. Many believed it was Jungkook and Jimin. Their cryptic photos quickly spread across the online community, but what caught the most attention was not just the way the two appeared together, but the way Jungkook looked at Jimin in the image, a soft, focused, and meaningful look. Some ARMY even wrote, "That gaze is not the gaze of someone who just apologized. It was the gaze of someone who could finally breathe a sigh of relief." In a radio interview a few days later, Jungkook was again asked about his viral broadcast. He looked a little awkward, but then laughed a little. "Sometimes we hold things for too long, and once it finally comes out, it feels like the world is lighter," she said, looking down. "I just want to be more honest, not just with the fans, but with myself." When the interviewer mentioned Jimin, Jungkook paused for a moment. Then he said in a softer voice, "She's always where I come from, no matter how far I go. Sometimes I think he knows all the things I don't even have time to say." The speech made the studio atmosphere suddenly silent. The interviewer only smiled, while ARMY in the comments could not hold back tears. There are not many words to describe the relationship between two people who have been through so much together. Shortly after, Jimin shared the photo on Weverse. In the photo, he is seen sitting in a small cafe, wearing a gray sweater and a black hat. On the table, there were 2 cups of coffee, one black, one latte. There was no mention of who he was with, just one short sentence he wrote, "I'm happy to have a heart-to-heart talk today." It didn't take long for fans to associate him with Jungkook. The time of the photo upload was even close to Jungkook's schedule, which happened to be not recorded on the public agenda. All those little pieces feel like the perfect puzzle, a story of 2 people who choose to heal something that's cracked in their own way, without the camera's spotlight, without an official statement.